Cheers and a cloud of cigar smoke in NASA's Mission Control here in Houston. Cheers and puffs of smoke when the wheels of the space shuttle touched down at Edwards Air Force Base in California. The Columbia is back after spending 7 days in space. Terry Drinkwater was there when the Columbia returned to Earth.
By dawn's early light, 500,000 people had come out to the dry lake bed on the Mojave Desert. From NASA's TV cameras, it looked big, Columbia coming back from space for the 4th time. This shuttle mission was nearly flawless. On the ground, eyes skyward, and a 4th of July boom of the sonic kind. President Reagan was here to see for himself. The shuttle now slowed to 700 miles an hour, the computers flying it down to 2,500 feet. Then astronauts Ken Mattingly and Hank Hartsfield to take over. Many in the crowd were Air Force men. This was Shuttle's first military mission. How those secret tests went is classified, but all the other experiments were accomplished almost without a hitch. The only problem was the loss of the 2 reusable solid-fuel rocket boosters worth $56 million. They were jettisoned after liftoff a week ago and sunk in the Atlantic when their parachutes didn't open properly. Today, for the first time, the runway for Columbia was paved, testing the craft for future landings at the Kennedy Space Center. Everything perfect.
Gears down and locked.
And touchdown. And compliments all around.
Outstanding.
The shuttle on this flight had been pressed again to nearly its limits. The accomplishment more than just a 4th of July spectacular.
Welcome back to Earth. That was beautiful.
That's quite a ride.
This was the last test flight for Shuttle. NASA today declared this hybrid craft half spaceship, half plane, operational. Regularly scheduled flights to begin in November. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, Edwards Air Force Base, California.
NASA was especially interested in what the president would or would not say when he greeted the shuttle astronauts today. NASA was looking for a clue as to what the future might bring. Covering President Reagan, Leslie Stahl.
It was hard not to point with excitement as Columbia came into sight. Even the veterans, astronauts from previous shuttle flights, were on their feet. Much of today's event was orchestrated by the White House, which wanted a visual spectacular to highlight the president's visit. The astronauts were asked specifically to wear jumpsuits, and NASA built a small 4th of July reviewing stand in the middle of the desert.
Well, I think it's just magnificent. There are no words to describe it.
After a brief cool-down period, astronauts Hartsfield and Mattingly emerged, looking as calm as if they'd just come back from a short trip to New York. Except, of course, the President of the United States was there saluting them, and the First Lady was there kissing them. The Reagans seemed interested in the spacecraft itself, the President reaching out to touch the tiles which have caused the program so much trouble in the past. Today's triumph was not without some disappointment for NASA. Officials here had expected President Reagan to publicly endorse the spending of $1 billion for the 5th shuttle orbiter and another $9 billion for a permanent space station. But instead, he merely reaffirmed in the broadest terms a dedication to the space program.
The test flights are over. The groundwork has been laid. And now we will move forward to capitalize on the tremendous potential offered by the ultimate frontier of space.
In a printed report, the president recommitted the nation to deploying an anti-satellite capability, officials say in response to the Soviet threat. As a flag-waving crowd cheered them on, the astronauts praised the space program.
The most remarkable thing, besides the machine and the team that put it together, is that it's a new discovery every minute and every day.
And I'm convinced, as TK is, that American technology is the greatest in the world because we have the best people in the world. People are willing to work.
Stand beside us and guide us through the night with a light from above.
The day's activities ended with another visual spectacular. As the president stood in front of the first shuttle, the Enterprise, he gave a go-ahead sign, and the newest shuttle craft called Challenger, piggybacked on a 747 jumbo jet, flew by the reviewing stand on its way to Cape Canaveral. Challenger's trip into space is scheduled in January. Leslie Stahl, CBS News, Edwards Air Force Base, California.
The astronauts' return to Houston from California this evening marks an anniversary for the space program. It was 20 years ago to the day, the 4th of July, 1962, when the original 7 astronauts arrived in Houston with great fanfare to take up residence at a brand new facility, which was to become the Johnson Space Center. Bill Curtis will be here with more of the day's news in a moment.